plenty of time to talk and chat and interact. We're up to 7 people now. We're going to get started in just a couple seconds, everybody. Just a couple seconds. We got a little bit of ground to cover, so I'm going to go pretty fast, but you are going to be able to chat at any time, chat in your questions. Chris Robinson is here. Some of you might know Chris Robinson. He's going to be able to help with some of those chats, also answering questions. Chris is a national account director and maybe even calls on some of you to help you with your Dearborn products. And Manuela, nice to see that you're here from St. Petersburg, Florida. Love that. All right. We're going to get started in about 10 seconds, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm Toby Schifsky. I'm the Executive Director of Real Estate at Kaplan, North America, and specifically Dearborn. Dearborn Real Estate Education and Publishing. And today we're doing a partner webinar, and kind of you should be able to see me and hear me. Today's topic is really, a look back and what did you learn about your business last year? A reflection back on 2020. Really from a 2021 perspective. And so what I would really, want to understand today is I want us to kind of take a look at the most challenging, enlightening year I think I've ever been through. I've been in this business for 19 years, and we've never had a year like last year. We've had some years that were close, 2007, 2008. Those were some challenging years, 2009, even very challenging years, but nothing quite like what we've gone through in the last year. Super compressed, super challenging. And so today, what we're going to do is, we're going to review the challenges and enlightenment that we've had in the last year, kind of to help us understand, how we may want to operate as educators going forward. What did we learn? What can we take going forward? What are the strategies that we employed that worked and didn't work, and how quickly we were able to adapt? And then what does that mean kind of going forward? We're going to discuss the impact. COVID was a true disruption event. You think of like a worldwide extinction event. You hear about that all the time, right? People talking about meteorites hitting the earth and destroying, the planet. But this was an event that really changed our business, and it kind of compressed years and years of change into literally just months. So we're going to explore, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and what might work better going forward. And then you're going to get an opportunity to anonymously share some information. We're going to do some polling questions, and nobody's going to know who you are. You can answer the questions truthfully, and kind of play along and then see where you're at with your peers and what's happening in the business. And then by all means, you're going to be able to participate by chatting in the chat box. And I'm here to answer the questions. And then Chris Robinson is also here. He's the National Account Director at Kaplan Sales, probably calls on some of you even. And he's going to be able to help answer some questions too as we roll along with us. So by the end of this webinar, short 30 minutes, this is going to be action-packed and full of stuff. We're going to understand some of the challenges and successes, that your fellow educators share. And I'm going to give you a perspective from Kaplan Real Estate Education. I also run Kaplan Real Estate Education. We're in like 24 different states doing licensing and continuing education. I'm going to share that with you today. And so you're going to gain some insight. I think that you're going to be able to instantly leverage into your business. At a minimum, it's going to challenge kind of some of the stuff you were thinking, or it will reaffirm that you're on the right path for what you believe you need to do in order to run a business as an educator today. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to jump right in. By all means, ask your questions on the chat and we're going to get to them. We have a nice tidy group here today. And once again, we are recording this. So if you have to leave for any reason, we will send you out a link to go to the recording later too. So, and I can tell you, we have quite a few people signed up for this, but a lot of people watch it recorded later. A little harder to get your questions answered when you watch it recorded. So let's go ahead and I'm going to jump in. In fact, what I would like to do is I would like to start off with a question. And the question I want to ask everybody, and this is your chance to participate, is, although the immediate effects of the COVID pandemic impacted business March, April, May of 2020, if you remember back just over a year ago, on like March 6th, everything changed. There's this little ramp up and lead up in February, and then on March 6th, everything just changed. States started to close down, and by March 16th, just about everywhere was closed down. And then April and May, and nobody knew what was happening. And I know our business just kind of fell off, and it was everybody went into trough management. I can tell you this, at Kaplan, we changed the entire structure of our organization. We had 3 large divisions that went into one big division. It was going into serious trough management. But that isn't really what happened in the real estate world, right? In the real estate education, it wasn't so much a trough as it was a V recovery. And for a lot of people, they may have found that they were able to recover quickly by the summer of 2020. So the question here is, although the immediate effects of COVID pandemic impacted businesses March, April, May of 2020, I want to know, were you able to, as an educator, modify your business quick enough to recover by 2020? Because remember, they canceled a lot of live classroom education, all that kind of changed. So I'm going to go ahead and put up a poll question for you, and I'm going to ask you guys to participate. Here we go. Poll question number 1. Go ahead and take a stab at answering this question. Everybody, if you would, play along. It was a disaster is answer number 1. We did not recover fast enough, and there were many who didn't. It was manageable. We were able to deliver a fair amount of education, but had many learning moments. That's kind of the middle of the road answer. And then it was a thing of beauty. We pivoted quickly, we changed our strategies, and we grew our business the rest of the year. Go ahead and participate, play along. Oh, look at that. Looks like we've got everybody that has joined in, and everybody, well, almost everybody's played. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. 3, 2, 1. 0, and I'm going to share these results with you guys. All right, so this is interesting, and go ahead and take a look at this. So nobody said it was a disaster. That's pretty good, actually. Once again, these are anonymous. Nobody's going to know, but it was manageable. We were able to deliver a fair amount of education, but had many learning moments. I think that's the number 1 answer. I got to tell you, we were kind of in that category at first, but we did learn pretty quickly then, and we did grow our business by the end of the year. It did. Now, it probably helped that I think the entire, market was up, right? All boats in the harbor were lifted at some point. And so I think you could have made quite a few mistakes in the beginning and still have done a pretty good year. And then for you too, it was a thing of beauty. We pivoted quickly, changed our strategies, and grew the business for the rest of the year. I want to hear about how you did that. And so we're gonna have a chance for you to participate and play along a little bit later with some chats. And we're gonna go through this pretty quick, because part of what I wanted to make sure is that we can make it through to kind of get some conclusions by the end of this today. All right. So for Kaplan, once again, I was just going to let you guys in on something, what happened for us on our school business. For Kaplan, business was up slightly through February. So before COVID, we were just up slightly. It was negligible. It was like 0.5%. And then COVID hit, and we went into this trough management. And the rest of our organization, I can tell you this: we have other education, that we offer at Kaplan, like chartered financial analysts, CFA education, and CFP, and insurance and securities. They didn't recover like we did in real estate. And once again, I think it was because people are out of work looking for jobs, and all the water was up, the tide was up in the harbor, and all boats kind of got lifted in real estate. And that's true. But you also had to be in the right place with the right products at the right time. And I do think we were able to finally do that. And I can see that some of you also did that. So enrollments and revenue growth, we were up, depending on the state, because we kind of look at it on a state-by-state basis, anywhere from 10 to 14% for the whole year compared to 2019. And so it was really a pretty good year for us. And so we're we're going to find out a little bit how it went for you also, for what you'd like to share. But that was a challenging year, and believe me, we're going to talk about those challenges kind of going forward. So, in fact, I call it the most challenging and enlightening year pretty much of my career. I know that because it was a true disruption event, and how it disrupted our business. And I'm going to ask you guys in a second if it disrupted you, because I'm not exactly sure how many of you, were doing live classroom or in-person education and had to change. I'm going to ask you in a second. So it was a true disruption event. COVID stopped everything. In-person classrooms canceled instantly. And that happened on March 16th for us. We ended up canceling over 2,500 in-person classes instantly. And so that changed everything. And what do those people do? Where were they going to go, right? So let me ask you guys this question. Did you have to cancel in-person classes? Let me go ahead and pull up the poll question, and because I like to know, I want to know where you're at and what you're dealing with and what your challenges are. So go ahead and answer this question real quick. Did you have to cancel in-person classes? I'm just going to ask everybody. We're going to take only about 5 seconds on this. So I got, look at that. Most everybody had to cancel in-person classes. I got one person that didn't, and I would imagine that's probably because you probably weren't running live classes. I'm going to assume that. Put it in the chat if you were doing something different. But if you're not doing in-person classes, I'm assuming that's why you didn't. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. Very good. And I'm going to share the results. And so look at that. So 7 people. All right. So you guys are primarily doing live classroom. And for you, the one person who did not, if you're not, then you were, your world wasn't disrupted at all. In fact, what we might find is that your world benefited a lot by having live classroom canceled. So very, very interesting. Let's go ahead. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull this back up. So, and I think I've already shared this with you, but I'll pull it up again. We canceled over 2,500 in-person classes ourselves. So we had a huge disruption. And we attempted to try to solve that with live online, at least for part of those people. And so in-person classroom canceled, and we tipped up live online. And frankly, for us at Kaplan, it saved live education. And it gave those people who need to be connected, who need to have a scheduled education time because maybe they struggle with trying to do it on their own. We were able to do that. And I know that RE Campus and Dearborn, we offered this platform that we're using right now for regulated education. And I know a lot of you actually adopted this platform to use it. And I know a lot of you adopted different platforms in order to actually deliver live online education. Because if you were primarily in-person education and COVID hit, you were done. And so, but, and this I'll get to the next point for us, distance education, seemed to be the big winner. And even though we tipped up live online, and I know a lot of our partners tipped up on live online, a lot of those people who would normally come to in-person classes, they may have been challenged by some of the challenges of live online and said, I'm going to try an asynchronous or home study approach. And so what we found was did anybody else find that that their asynchronous and home study businesses were up more than, say, if they tipped up? In fact, let me ask this. You guys can put it in the chat. How many of you tipped up live online? How many of you were doing live online, or maybe even still doing live online? Go ahead and just throw it in the chat box down there under it says send a message. And yep, look at that. So Curtis Wright says, yes, we're still trying to learn to do virtual. Yep, so that's your live online virtual education. Totally understand that. And let's see this. Yeah. All right. So anybody else? Yep. Lynn Banks did live online. And Lynn, did you find yourself being successful with the live online? Were you able to actually deliver it and create the kind of an experience that people were hoping for? And were they coming back? Or Converted to live online. Look at that, Monica is all in on live online. Love that. All right. So let me do this. Loved it. Very nice, Lynn. Yes, virtual live is living in Wyoming. I bet. That's a big state. There's a lot of territory to cover in Wyoming. So what did we learn about live online education? And because we learned a lot, right? If you tipped up live online, you learned a lot, and you had to learn really quickly. And it wasn't even, and it was, sometimes it was merciless, right? So sometimes if you had a problem, you would get crushed. Students, didn't enjoy the experience, or something didn't work right, or the platform didn't work right, or the regulators were hard to deal with. So we learned a lot, but what I can tell you is, I'll tell you what we learned, and then we'll see what you guys want to share. But students, look at Lynn, students now prefer live online, and they don't have to drive. We're going to talk about that. Beautiful. Look at that, about hybrid and equipment. So here's what we learned. Essentially, students were willing to pay the same as in-person classes for live online. That's what we found. We tried lower, we tried higher, and frankly, since there wasn't really in-person classes to compare it to, they were willing to pay. If somebody wanted that interaction, they were essentially willing to pay. What we found, though, was that a lot of the people who would have normally come to in-person said, you know what, maybe I'll try asynchronous online or home study first. Because there's some restrictions and some difficulties and, bandwidth issues and technology and computer issues, those kind of things. And so, because for live online, you need a microphone and you need a camera and you need connection and you need all those kind of things. Most regulators were requiring that. And so, a lot of people went to asynchronous online. So we didn't quite bring in the same amount of revenue that live classroom would have, because there was a little lower enrollment. But there's an interesting thing that happened with our live online, and it was about costs. Our cost control and operating expenses were favorable. So I don't know if anybody else found this, but we found it to be really pretty favorable. We had different options for course materials. We could send ebooks, right? Direct shipping, even different types of ways to get material to people. And I know a lot of our partners, Dearborn partners, did not want to have to receive books and did not want to ship again out to the students, and so they used the RE Campus portals to act their own portals to move books and get the books to students directly, right, from the RE Campus portals. So if you don't know what that is, RE Campus is our online asynchronous delivery of education. And with that portal, there's also a tab for a bookstore that you can send your students to and they'll buy. And it's a flat fee. You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to inventory the books. You get 15% of the sale. 50 flat out, 15%, just straight to your bottom line, done. You don't have to handle the books, you don't have to the shipping, and none of that. Student pays for the shipping, and so it's a very simple way to get your books delivered right to your students. Brick and mortar. We let go of 4 permanent locations nationally, big locations, been at for years and years and years. We abandoned them. We paid the abandonment charges. We got out of the leases. I have another 2 properties that we moved out of early this year, and numerous hotels that we stopped renting at for like continuing education and special events and things like that. And so a huge reduction in our fixed expenses, and no instructor travel or overtime. So there was a big cost control that happened with live online, because we pay, we're a big organization. We hire instructors. We pay them as employees. When you're a big company, you have a big target, and generally have to follow all the Department of Labor and rules and laws. And so they're all part-time employees, and you got to pay them travel and overtime and per diem and all those kind of things. And well, when you're doing live online, they're sitting in their house like I'm sitting in the house, and they're just teaching. So we found a lot of efficiencies. And then the one other one that's kind of a sneaky one is limited class overlap. So sometimes if you're a big educator, you're educating, not only in one state, but you're educating in multiple cities in one state, and you have to have a set number of classes for people to know you're in business. And lots of times you'll have 3 different licensing courses going in 3 different cities if you're a big enough organization. With Live Online, you could put all those people into one classroom, and you have one instructor as opposed to 3 instructors, as opposed to 3 locations going. And so there was just a lot of efficiencies with Live Online. Anybody else finding any of those efficiencies? Love to see down in the chats if you're finding those kind of efficiencies. We found pretty significant efficiencies with Live Online, and it ended up, it ended up being more profitable than live classroom, and that means to the bottom line, less revenue, but less costs. In fact, there was way less costs, and so far, more profitable than actually going back to in-person education. That's what we found. I don't know if anybody else was finding that, but that is what we were finding, and what we found, really to date. So, but with that, there's some trade-offs. And what are the trade-offs we found? Well, the pros, right? This would be the positive for students, the student experience. No travel time. I heard it early. I saw it early in the chats. I can't remember who put it in the chat earlier, but students, it was like the first thing you said. Students, didn't need to travel, and they loved that. I mean, right? They put the slippers on, they grab a cup of coffee, they sit on the couch, they get their little nest set, and they're in class. There's no hour commute, each way, 2 hours, 1 hour, 15 minutes, no travel time. And we heard that from just about every student, that they love that, right? Higher completion rates than other distance learning. I put this in kind of a distance learning category. Now it's live, but it's done through distance. And it's no secret that when people take an online asynchronous course, the course completion rates vary, right? But on average, you should know, we're at about 53% completion rate for licensing courses at Dearborn. And through RE Campus, and some of them are higher. Some of the educators who do more for their students, who not only just have the online education, but also then do instructor hours or instructor study groups with students, to get them engaged, will have even a higher course completion rate. But on average, it's about 53% for an asynchronous or for home study, but for Live Online, it's appointment education. It's about an 85% course completion rate. That's really good. That means a lot of people are being successful in the program. That's about, just FYI, that's about 5% lower for us than in-person education. That's at about 90% completion rate for us. So I'm not sure what your rates are at, but that completion rate can be important, especially if you have relationships with recruiters in your area who are recruiting people into the industry. And they want to know that when they send somebody to you, that they're going to get done and they're going to get through the education quickly and they're going to come back to them whole. That's super important with recruiters. And so there's something to think about there about maybe even Live Online versus just going all asynchronous or home study. But some education experiences, I saw this, and I think it was Lynn Banks. He said, students now prefer Live Online. They don't have to drive. And Curtis is talking about virtual being more difficult to get approval for CE, but hybrid equipment needed. And we're going to talk about hybrids in a second. But here's the thing. What we're finding is that some educational experiences are rating better than our in-person education because of connectivity, meaning students are connected to the tools that they use every day, right? I mean, they're actually on their computers or they're on their phones, and they have access to learning resources, and the really good instructors are able to send them to those resources, or even send them a link and say, everybody go here and find something, right? And they have engagement tools. like when I'm doing these polls, these are you can assess student comprehension of the material. These are like knowledge checks to know if you've got the room with you or not, right? There's a ton of tools that are available in live online environments that some people are figuring it out, and they're creating a really powerful learning experience for students. So, but there are cons also. And the cons that we've seen so far, and I'd love it if you guys would throw up some more cons, because there are some. Low social interaction with other students. Very low, right? I mean, everybody thinks that they all want to connect, but they don't always connect. And students, we polled them. Here's the crazy thing. We polled students, and even though they don't really want to hear from other students, they like being around other students to know that they're kind of in the boat with everybody else, and that they don't really know everything, and that's okay. Even though they really just want to hear from the instructor, which is odd. They don't want to hear from the other students, but they like being around them. And so it's one of the challenges of live online is, how do you connect? How do you get them to feel like they're a part of something? The ones who are good at this have figured out ways to do that. Strategies, different strategies to try to understand it and to do it. The lower connectivity with the school, faculty and staff, it's no doubt, it's harder. Like I'm here talking to you right now, but I'm in a presentation mode where I've got this up and I don't have all your video windows open. Now, the ones who really get it will go in and out, right? Back and forth into the video windows and get everybody to participate, which gets difficult if there's a lot of people in the class, for sure. But how do you get through that lower connectivity? And then technical equipment requirements. Got to have a microphone, got to have a camera, got to have all these things, got to have a really good internet connection. You got to have all these things in order to participate in live online. And it doesn't always work. Here's the last one. This is a big one. Load on technical and student support services. When people come to your in-person classrooms, you handle problems. The instructor can handle problems, staff can handle problems. You kind of smooth everything out at an in-person classroom. There's really no difficulty that you can't overcome when you got the people sitting right there with you every day, right? But it's a problem when they can't get onto a regulated education course and the clock is ticking and they're either in it or they lose credit for it. And there's a problem and there's their equipment. Because believe me, everybody, at some point is challenged, some more than others. And so there's this big load, and we got cooked. I think it's no secret. If you were calling Kaplan or Dearborn, from September through almost March of this year, we overcorrected. I told you the rest of the organization had all come into one, and we had to let people go, and we did all that stuff because real estate's just a part of a big organization. Our call center and customer service and technical service was kind of devastated, especially since we flipped to live online. All those things came. We had horrific abandonment rates, and I apologize again for anybody who had to sit on that and wait through that. I can tell you, we have doubled our staff finally for the last 3 weeks, and we are back to regular service levels for the first time in almost 6 months, and it was horrific. So there's stuff that happens when you push people to technology to deliver distance that I think we take for granted in a live in-person environment that you just need to be aware of. And once again, we struggled with it. As much as we do, and as good as we think we are, that was a huge miss for us, and it was not fun at all. So in-person education returns. How many? Here we go. How about this? Let's go. Curtis Wright's got a lot to say. Networking is great for real because networking in in-person classrooms. There's a lot of that happens, right? At breaks, at lunch, coffee breaks, whatever, right? How is Dearborn able to help us grow or a virtual business with some training? I think we could probably look at doing that. We're getting really pretty good at it. Look at Chris Robinson will take care of you. Nice, Chris. Thank you for that. So in-person education returns. What does that mean? Because I'm really curious. Who's going back or who's already back? So I had 7 of you earlier on say that you had to cancel in-person classes. I want to ask another question. Are you right now, because I think most states have opened back up, are you running in-person classes right now? Let me go ahead and I'm going to ask this survey question. I'd love it if you participate. Once again, it's anonymous. So please, are you running in-person classes right now? Go ahead and answer as quickly as you can. Yes, no, thinking about it, not sure, or we are starting up again in the near future. I've already got courses planned. I got the schedule laid out. We're not yet, but we're going to be. And go ahead and are you running in-person classes now? Wow, this is interesting. This is good. All right, I'm going to give a couple more seconds. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to share the results. Take a look at that. We got almost half the people, 44% are already doing in-person classes now. This is awesome. And then no. So a third of you say, nope, I'm not running any in-persons. And because of the next two questions or next two answers, thinking about it, we got one, and we're starting up in the near future. That's another one. But I would imagine you three who said no, I'm imagining you've moved on, and you're looking at live online, or you're looking at distance delivery. And so that is really, really interesting. Wow, very interesting. All right, so let's move on quickly because I know we're almost approaching. I'll tell you this, in general, at Kaplan, we're not running any in-person classes until at least September, just FYI. So look at that, Rebecca, teaching in-person, hybrid, and virtual. Beautiful. How are hybrids going? Love that. We're going to talk about hybrids in a second because I think there's a solution in there for hybrids. I think you're on to something, Andrea. I really do. How about this? In-person education for juniors. Can you go back to the way you used to do it? I have a question for you who are already back into it. Did you just go back to the way you were doing it before? I think I see some people saying that maybe it's a little different, right? Maybe it's a hybrid, but I would like to know, right? Because I think our world has changed, and I think students expect different. I know that we're looking at it different for if we go back to live education, we're going to do it different. We're in this Zoom world now, and the Zoom world is different. There are some real tools in these online platforms that make for a very engaging and interesting educational experience that maybe we weren't using before, right? And so what are students going to be looking for? I think they're looking for connectivity. This is what we hear. They want a fully engaged learning experience, right? I mean, we've all seen it before with in-person. Person comes in and sits down and puts the newspaper up and just sits there and reads the newspaper. Well, I think those days are gone for sure, and especially gone when you come to live online. But I think coming back to in-person classroom, they're looking for a fully engaged experience, which means they want to embrace their electronic devices. That's what we're hearing is, listen, I want to use my phone. We used to tell people you can't bring laptops into the classroom. It was distracting. That's gone. I'll tell you right now. If we go back to live classroom, we're gonna tell them to bring everything. And as a matter of fact, we might tell them you have to bring a phone, because there are tools available now like Kahoot or Schoology that add to an environment, and there's other stuff out there. These are just two I grabbed that I know some of our partners have used. But has anybody used Kahoot? Kahoot is like an in-class game where you can pose questions to students, almost like a trivia and almost like a competition, and who can answer it first and who answers quickly. And so you can ask these kind of knowledge check questions as you're going through a classroom. There's a bunch of different stuff you can do with multiple choice questions and true false, all these different things. And Schoology is really a connectivity tool that can connect faculty and students. Remember, we get into that social connection part and content. All right, so quality presentations, very important. Options is very important. Options is the new world. Options, flexibility, right? In fact, we're going to talk a little bit about flexibility. Less travel and more flexible. That's another thing that our students want. They kind of like putting their slippers on and sitting on the couch, but some of them need that push, that scheduled time, that scheduled education is powerful for some. And but the ability to be flexible, even more powerful. Maybe some's live, maybe some's online, maybe they can bounce. Now, clearly, the regulators need to get on board with this, because a lot of regulators don't allow for you to flip-flop between different delivery types. Some states, I know Florida, I know North Carolina, I know Minnesota, I know there are numerous states that are now offering the ability for you to get hybrid courses approved, which have some, thanks, Stephen, that have some ability to do live and some ability to do passive or asynchronous learning. And that is powerful. So I agree. I think new in-person models like hybrid and others will be kind of a wave of what live in-person education looks like in the future. Some sort of combination. All right. So we're just about wrapping up. We just talked about live online, which is a form of distance education. I call it that. But what happened with full distance education, right? Like asynchronous and home study. What happened last year? Because I think they were the big winners, frankly. They were the big winners of everything. And this is what we saw. We saw asynchronous online education is up across all education categories: licensing, post-licensing, CE, professional development, 12 to 16% year over year. 12 to 16%, 2019 versus 2020, and it's up still in 2021, right? Home study, correspondence education is up in all education categories, 13 to 17%. Now that might be because it has a lower price point. It might be that it's truly mobile because it's a home study correspondence, it's a book. Some states don't allow this. They don't allow a textbook correspondence study course, but that's what we're seeing, is that is the winner so far. Doesn't mean people aren't going to carve out an experience for people for in-person education, that they aren't going to carve out an experience in a live online world. But right now, asynchronous and home study seems to be up more than live education, be it in-person or live online. All right, so I have one last question for you. All right, this is for everybody on here. And I think I know the answer to this, but I'm not sure. I know one of you for sure is offering online education. Are you offering asynchronous online course delivery to your students? Are you offering that? Because I know a lot of people weren't. Beginning of last year, they weren't, but they are now. And so I'm going to go ahead and just ask this poll question to be our last poll. It'll take a second, but I would really like to know, are you offering, go ahead, quickly, are you offering asynchronous online course delivery to your students? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Yes, no, I should be. Somebody please contact me after this is over. So if you want to be contacted, hit that one right there. And I'll make sure Chris finds you and can talk to you about asynchronous online delivery. Perfect. All right, 3, 2, 1. Let's go ahead and end the poll. How about this? I'm going to share the results. Look at that. So 5 of you, yes. And I think you need a healthy balance. I think you're missing out. In fact, I'll share something with you. I've got 2 of you that say no, that you're not doing any asynchronous. I'll tell you right now, asynchronous and asynchronous delivery at Kaplan is a significant part of our revenues. As a matter of fact, nearly 75% of Kaplan's real estate education is delivered asynchronously, and it's a popular form of delivery. And so I'm thinking of people who are in the business of education, and you have relationships that you are building a business on, and the people coming to you are coming to you for a reason, and it's probably because you do fantastic in-person education or fantastic live online. But if you're not doing asynchronous, there are people who just won't come to you because that's what they want, and you should have that as a well-rounded kind of portfolio of offerings. And so I could do this. We're about done with my content, but I would open it up for any questions that you guys have. If you wanted to open it up and have any text chat questions, go ahead and do that. Ask your questions away. And if not, because I know we're just a little bit over time, Do you have a full appraisal qualifying classes for online? Oh, Rebecca, the bane of my existence, appraisal qualifying classes. I wish. And no, Kaplan Dearborn made the decision almost a decade ago not to create that content. And but there are options out there for you, but doors are closing quickly on appraisal, as there's one large competitor that we have that is really closing the door on that competition. And I'm sorry to say we don't have that material. So, well, lots of money coming out of the feds. Yeah, well, they have a problem. There was a lot of difficulty, getting those requirements raised almost to too high of a level, and it kind of stifled that industry, that appraisal industry, I believe. And then there is talk about appraisal being maybe a career profession that is shrinking. There's only about 80,000 appraisers in the country today, and I don't know what there's going to be in 5 years, maybe a lot less than that because of electronic and appraisals that are being done in replacement. So it's going to be very, 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 very interesting for appraisal over the next couple of years. All right. Any other questions? Rebecca's still typing. I love it. All right. I'll tell you what we can do. Rebecca is still typing, and Rebecca, we're going to go ahead and stay on with you. Thank you, everybody who came to today's webinar. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me directly, or you can email Chris Robinson if you have any other questions about product or content, and if you have any needs. I'm sure Chris will reach out to you if you answered that, I should probably be doing asynchronous online education. He's going to be reaching out to you. And I thank you again for being here today. I would leave you with really one last note for me, which is what I've tried to practice diligently, clearly since last year, which is fail quickly, change quickly, and repeat. Keep trying new things constantly, but learn when you're failing and change quickly, and change path. That's what we've had to do. And I've got a feeling that if you're not failing quickly and changing quickly, you are being left behind in the education business. So continue to do that. Thanks, Ted Island. Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate it. Take care, everybody.